Hey, what's going on? It's Phil here from Custom Offsets TV on the YouTube. And this is Luna from Custom Offsets TV on the YouTube. And we are here to tell you about 5 complete setups for your vehicle that you can get for under $3,000. So that's wheels, tires, and suspension under $3,000, which is pretty much insane and unheard of. So for the first setup, we're bringing you the ever popular Motometal 962 wrapped in the Federal Coraggio 33 by 12.5, sitting on the Rough Country 3.5 inch level lift. Now, a lot of these brands you're definitely familiar with. Motometal's been around forever. The 962's been super hot for the last, I want to say, like 3 years or so, and it seems like it's not going anywhere anytime soon. They offer a couple of different finishes, and pricing can change a bit depending on which one you get, but in general, this whole setup's going to be under that $3,000 range. Now, the Federal Coraggio MT, you might have heard some people say bad things about, maybe some people say good things about. I actually personally ran a set on a Ford Ranger that I had back in the day because they are a very cheap tire. They're very affordable, and I just needed something to basically get me through for a couple weeks before I flipped the truck because I was just driving it as a beater. They can be pretty loud if you're driving it every day, but they do exactly what they're designed to do. They are a super cheap tire, and I mean, if you need a cheap tire, they do that for you. I think I've probably beat that to death already in the first minute of this video, but you should kind of get the point. They're loud, they don't wear perfectly, but they're cheap. And if you actually do any like mudding or off-roading, they do halfway decent. So I'm relatively impressed with those. And then the Rough Country kit, we're gonna bring this one up a couple times, pretty much because it is one of the most affordable kits on the market that's technically a lift kit. So they call it a level lift because it's not very big. There's no new spindles or anything like that. It's kind of like just a giant leveling kit. But it does come with new shocks and stuff like that, and it does get you 3.5 inches higher. Now, are the angles the best? No, admittedly I can say that. But when you're getting into the game with wheels, tires, and suspension for less than $3,000, overall, I think it's a pretty good package. Hey, Corey.
Hi.
How's your bush light?
Am I in a custom offsets video?
You are in a custom offsets video.
Hell yeah.
Well, I'm short. Get down. There you
I'm
are.
in a custom offsets video. Is this what it's like to be famous?
This is what it's like to be short. Not to be famous, but to be short.
Kind of sucks.
So for our second setup, we were going out to the gallery to find all of these, seeing what wheels and tires and suspension will not only be less than $3,000, but also fit vehicles. So the gallery is how we figured that out, by using that on our website. And then we came across a truck, it's like a 13 Silverado. It's running 20 by 12 ballistic rages with a -44 offset. And then the Falcon Wild Peak AT3 in the 305/55, which is basically a 33 by 12. And then he's running a 7.5 inch Rough Country lift. And believe it or not, all of that added together is still less than $3,000. Now here's the part where I got tricked. It turns out this truck is actually a 2-wheel drive, so that lift kit's only $950, but if you have a 4-wheel drive, you can still pick up that same kit for like $150 more. So it gets you just over the $3,000 mark, but then you're getting a huge lift, 7.5 inches of lift. You're getting the 20 by 12s, the -44 offset, and you're getting the 305/55s. And the Falcon Wild Peak AT3 is actually a really good tire. We recently did a review on that. If you want to check out the full video to go in depth, you can definitely do that by checking our YouTube channel. So like I said, you get the big lift, you get the big wheels and tires, and it's still less than $3,000 if you got a 2-wheel drive. Otherwise, just barely over that. It's like $20 or $30 more if you've got a 4-wheel drive truck. Now keep in mind, obviously this could change depending on what truck you have. Some trucks have lift kits that are significantly cheaper. Some trucks have lift kits that are more expensive. Like for example, if you're getting up into like a 3/4 ton or a 1-ton truck, those lift kits can be more expensive. But in general, I think most people out there are driving, a 1/2-ton pickup. And the most common by far that we see, at least uploaded to the gallery, is definitely the Chevy Silverado. So again, for this example, we use the Chevy Silverado since it is the most common vehicle that we see in our gallery. And then this one's running 20 by 10 Motometal 970s wrapped in a trail blade 33 by 12.5s. And then the same Rough Country 3.5 inch suspension lift. So like I said before, it's not a very fancy lift. There aren't a lot of components, but you still get 3.5 inches of lift, which allows you to fit the 20 by 10s and 33 12.5s. Now, depending on how much trimming you're willing to do, there's a potential that you could go up in size, since this package, wheels and tires are around $2,000, and then that lift kit is only a couple $100. I think overall the total package is less than $2,300 for your lift, your wheels, and your tires. So again, pretty impressive to totally transform how your truck looks to go to something that looks significantly better. for not that much money, roughly probably what you're getting back in taxes this year. So when it comes to Turo tires, that's another one that we get a lot of questions on, and I made a whole separate video on their entire tire lineup to show you the differences between each of them and kind of tell you what each one is good for. But in general, it's one of those cheaper brands as well, so people have a lot of concerns about longevity and how many miles they're going to get out of it. And what we've seen is, because they are so popular, a lot of people are buying them because, again, they're affordable. As long as you're rotating these, every 3,000 to 5,000 miles, and you keep up on proper maintenance, making sure you don't, your ball joints aren't out of whack or anything like that, we see these tires performing just as good as some of the more expensive tires on the market. Now, they're not going to last quite as long, but they do pretty good for the price. So yet again, we picked another Chevy Silverado as an example because it seems like I mentioned before, these are just the most popular truck, and because they're so popular, manufacturers are making a ton of different products for these, which then in turn can keep costs down since they're mass producing it. So the wheel and tire setup on this one is the Red Dirt Road Vortex in a 20x12 at -44, wrapped in a 3312.5 Nitto Ridge Grappler. So what you see is the Red Dirt Road, again, it's one of those brands that's more affordable, but then because they went with such a cost-effective wheel, they're able to put a really good tire on there. The Nitto Ridge Grappler is by far our favorite tire here at the shop because it lasts a long time. They have good load ratings if you're gonna put this on a heavy duty truck. Depending on what size you get, they definitely have options for just about everybody out there. And it's a hybrid, so it's combining the best of both the mud tire world and the all-terrain world and combining them together so you get good mileage. They're not super loud, but you still have low traction performance, kind of mess it up, you know what I'm saying. And then same thing for the lift. It's the same rough country 3.5-inch lift that we've been talking about because it's just cheap. It's really affordable and it gets you lifted for less. I think that's probably their slogan. So then for number 5, since we made our own wheel brand, obviously we have to throw one of these in there. So number 5 is the Archon Lincoln. It's a 20x10 -25, which we give it a little bit more offset than the other guys out there. And that's gonna be wrapped in the Canadi tires, the Mud Hogs, which is the MT from those guys. And it's a 35x12.5. So you're getting a 20x10 and 35, a little more meaty setup, a little more aggressive, but because of the price point of the wheels and the tires, you can actually afford a 7.5-inch rough country lift. Now, this will depend on year, make, and model of your specific vehicle, but for an example, we use the Chevy Silverado again, and you can pick that up for about $1,100. So overall, you get a true directional or proper directional cast wheel, some not so popular tires, but they work, they're cheap, and a 7.5-inch lift. So you can really go from being stock and boring and low and not having any stance to a completely lifted truck that looks really mean, really aggressive. So if you're looking for any wheel and tire setups, we got probably just about anything you want. You can come up to our website at customoffsets.com and search by year, make, model, or by size, or by brand, or anything you want to do. If you're not really sure where to start, I'd totally recommend checking out the gallery. So it's customoffsets.com/gallery. You can search by your year, make, and model to see exactly what other people have put on their truck, so you know what fits right down to the diameter, width, offset, spacers, the whole 9 yards. It's all on there. Peace.